If you are on a self-discovery journey, this podcast is for you. We will explore personal growth through storytelling, candid conversations, and practical strategies to help us navigate through life's challenges and rewards. This is your Access Has Been Granted podcast, the off season. Regulators. I had to stretch that out because I am stretching myself out at this point. Welcome back to your Access Has Been Granted podcast, the off season. I am your host, Brittany Leary. If you are here for the first time, this is my podcast. And in this series, we are talking off season, which is what I call my hibernation season. In this season, just like the winter solstice, we are resting, we are reflecting, we are going through all of our core values, trying to figure out what we need to keep, what we need to enhance. And in today's episode, we are going to talk about life and how it is the ultimate DIY project. In this episode, we're going to talk about the mindset of the DIY project and how it relates to life. We're going to talk about challenges. We're going to talk about strategies and skills. And even in part 2, we're going to talk about transformational questions that can help you get unstuck while you're in this season. Now, you think to yourself, it's February at this time. It's February now. You set those new goals in January, and you're at the point now where you're like, how much of it did I actually get done? But let me tell you something. Let's share some statistics right now. Before we get into the statistics, I want to give you a quote that I read that kind of inspired this episode. The quote is by Napoleon Hill, who is a pioneer in the personal development and self-discovery space. And the quote says, it takes about half of your life before you realize that your life is the most ultimate DIY project. I might have added some words in there, but that's basically what he said. So when we talk about statistics in 2023, there was a study done, and 37% of those people said that they would definitely make New Year's resolution. Out of those 37%, 87% of those people were confident that they would definitely stick to those resolutions. By February, only 22% of those people had actually stuck to those resolutions, and the other 54% had got some of it done. Now, I bring all that up now because we're in February, and I want us to think about the grace of it all. Now, one more thing I have to say before we get into the full-on episode is that I remember in episode 1, I told you guys that I would be doing a full-on live reaction to every episode. After I thought about it, I don't think I'm going to do a full reaction to every episode. So right now we're going to reference episode 3 and 4. And episode 3 and 4 of Your Access Has Been Granted season 1 that was originally recorded in 2021. The episodes we're talking about giving yourself grace and then extending grace to others. And a lot of this DIY project talk has a lot of space for grace because I think in the DIY process, we start to get a little off track when things don't go the way that we actually thought they should go or the way that people told us that they should go. And when you're working in a DIY project, the resilience of it all, it keeps you going. And in order to be resilient, which means that every time you fall, you're going to get back up no matter what, you have to give yourself grace. And sometimes other people push you down and you have to extend grace to others so that you can get up and move on. So in the first part of this episode, we're going to talk about the characteristics of the DIY mindset. And if you're not familiar with what DIY means, it basically means do it yourself. And the DIY concept is a concept of designing, creating, customizing, and refurbishing, if you will, repairing things with no actual training. And if you think about that definition, that is the exact definition of life. We are walking through life, designing, creating, customizing, redefining, redesigning, all of those things until we figure it out because we don't have any formal training. We have all of these books that tell us what could help. We have all of these people that we are inspired by. We have all of this inspiration around us. But at the end of the day, when you start doing your own life project, when you start doing it yourself, you start figuring out that there's a lot of gray areas that no one can tell you about. They may could tell you the black and white of the situation, but they can't tell you those gray areas. And again, that is where that resilience and that grace comes in. You have to be able to have the freedom to actually allow yourself to be creative in your life. You have to allow yourself to be able to design and redesign as many times as you need to, or learn and unlearn. Like we like to say, you have to be okay with creating the life that you want to live through the challenges and through the hardships. So that is what we're talking about when we're comparing life to a DIY project, because personal development and self-discovery is ongoing and it's a creative process. No one can tell you how this process is actually going to go through. They can tell you what your destination is, but no one can ever tell you what the process is going to look like. And I think for most people who do DIY projects, that's the fun part for them. So some of the characteristics of a DIY mindset would be someone that's creative and using freedom to use their creativity, resourcefulness. You heard me? I'm struggling today. Resourcefulness, being able to use your resources. You know what? When I think about that, it's crazy because even this morning, here's me kicking in with my spirituality. I was doing my Bible talk that I do every morning, my pastor in New Orleans, Pastor Everett. And his message this morning was, my results don't match my resources, because a lot of times we go into situations and we may have some resources, but when we're diligent and we're in the mindset of resilience and we're being creative and we have this destination that we're going to reach no matter what, a lot of times our results are so much bigger than our resources. And that just came to me when I read resourcefulness, and I wanted to share that with y'all. You've heard me say the word resilient 10 times already in this episode, because I don't know if anyone has thought about how resilient you have to be in order to make it through this life in general. And when we're talking about life in the DIY mindset, outside of those things that are obviously something that relates immediately, we also want to add in the freedom to move forward, the courage to move forward, and then the wisdom, learning what you need to do in order to move forward in this life or this DIY project is so important. And when I think about that, I'm gonna start telling my story about this DIY project. When I'm getting ready to do an actual DIY project, I am a learner. I need the knowledge. I am a wisdom seeker. I will watch 11 YouTube videos in order to grab all of the information that I can. I'm talking about, when I say 11, I mean at least 20 or 30. And that is a real number. That's not a fake number. I am watching all of these videos for inspiration. I want to be able to pull something from each person and be able to add my own little twist to it at the end. So that's kind of where my DIY project usually starts. When you talk about life, that looks like me reading books, a lots of books, and taking what's like serves me and leaving what doesn't. That looks like me taking courses and going to school and figuring out what people and what workshops I need to be around and in proximity of, in order to learn what I need to learn in order to get to that destination that I'm trying to get to. Because when you're doing it yourself, you actually have to put in the effort and intention to learn for yourself. All right, now let's move on to talking about some benefits of approaching your life as it's a DIY project. One of the things that you're going to get out of approaching your life like it's a DIY project is it's going to encourage independence and problem solving. A lot of times we don't realize when we're codependent on people. If you're one of those people who find yourself saying quite a bit, oh, it's because such and such did this to me, or because someone did this and took my opportunity, or because someone did this and I was unable to do that, then you have found yourself in a codependent space. You have found yourself in a space where you're depending on others to make your dreams come true. You're depending on others to make sure that your project is completed. And a lot of that is going to work against you when you're talking about completing this task of this DIY project. Problem solving is a whole nother game, but I am going to give you some resources to help you work through problem solving and help you get to the point to where you're actually able to assess your issues, even like using a SWOT analysis, be able to assess your strengths, your weaknesses, where do you find opportunities, and where are threats that are going to threaten you getting that DIY project done. So a SWOT analysis in that case might even be a good place for you to start when you're talking about encouraging independence and problem solving. The next thing is going to be promoting continuous learning and adaptability. I am always going to encourage us to learn more. I am never going to stop learning. I know without ego that I don't know nothing. And I say that all the time. I actually say that as a joke every time I learn something new. I always say, I know nothing, because there is so much to learn. You are never in a space where you know everything. And if you come from a energy or a space where you know nothing, and what you know is just what you open yourself up to so many more opportunities to learn and to move forward in your DIY project. When you're talking about adaptability, it's a lot of people that struggle to be adaptable. It's a lot of people that struggle to, what's the word I'm looking for? Adjust. A lot of people struggle to adjust. And as a life coach, of course, I see that more than probably the normal person does. And sometimes the only thing that's stopping you from finishing that DIY project or living your life as you desire to is the self-limiting beliefs and the lack of adaptability. All right. And the last benefit that I have here that I wanted us to talk about, if you decided to take the DIY approach to life, would be the cultivation of a sense of accomplishment and personal fulfillment. To me, personal fulfillment has become very important because I have put in the work in the last 5 years to see myself go through the work, the challenges, the hardships, the ups and downs, to actually get to that spot where I can see and feel the fulfillment. And it has been so rewarding. That alone, the feeling of fulfillment that I get when I actually put intent into the goals that I write and the goals and the action steps, and I actually complete the action steps. That feeling of fulfillment is what keeps me going more than anything else, because I feel like I'm not letting myself down. I think in one of the wrap-up episodes, we talked about trusting yourself. And a lot of trusting yourself in this DIY project comes up because you have to trust yourself in order to actually create. You have to trust yourself to be resilient. You have to know that once you get back up, you are 1000% going to keep going no matter what comes your way. So a lot of trust is in this process. And I have learned to trust myself so that I can get to those fulfilling moments, because I feel like no one's going to get in my way. Nothing is going to get in my way. And it might knock me down, but it'll never keep me down. It might fold. I might fold, but I'll never break. And that is a part of what brings on that sense of accomplishment. Every time I don't break, I feel accomplished. Every time I fall and I get back up, I feel accomplished. Like, everything is not being at the peak. Everything is not about being at your peakest, highest moment. It's a lot of it is about the process, and it sounds so cliche, but a lot of the fulfillment that I've experienced, a lot of the sense of accomplishments that I've experienced has been through the process, and probably some of my hardest times. And it's been when I've seen myself through and come out on the other side. All right. So in this segment, we are going to talk about the tools that you will need in your toolbox to create this DIY project we call life. The first thing I'm looking at is the essential skills and the techniques. And when you say that to life, you're like, what essential skills and techniques? The first one is critical thinking and decision making. And I can speak from my own experience and a lot of the experiences I've had with clients. Critical thinking is a is a skill set that most people don't have. Yep. I'm gonna just go ahead and say it. But what I will say is it can be learned. And further in the episode, I'm going to give you a resource to help you enhance or develop that critical thinking skill and those decision making skills that help you move forward in these DIY projects, aka life. When life be lifing, we want to use our critical thinking skills and decision making skills, because a lot of times we are moving faster than we need to. We are a generation of instant gratification. And a lot of times our lives are calling for us to be still. And when you're being still, you start to use your critical thinking skills. You start to think through a process. A lot of people might call it overthinking, but sometimes a lot of these situations require you to think through them. And a lot of times practice makes perfect. So sometimes being still and going through the process of thinking critically is what is going to help you develop the ability to be more responsive quicker in the future. But for now, when you're just getting comfortable and you just trying to hone those skills, it's okay to be still. Use your critical thinking skills and take a few seconds to make your decision. Everything does not call for us to be impulsive, especially in the off season. In the off season, we definitely don't need to be impulsive. We need to be taking our time, using our brains, and if we're unsure about what we're thinking, we need to be using our village to come up with plans and strategies for us to continue through this process. The next tool in the toolbox would be time management and organization. It's funny because I was talking to one of my coworkers the other day, and I was saying, and this don't shoot me, but it's a lot of men that I've come in contact with who don't use planners, and I always think that's funny. I was like, they don't see no need for a planner or a time block. It's a lot of corporate men who I see use a calendar and time block, and they're still disorganized, and I always find that funny. But time management and organization is so important. One of the biggest things that I've learned from time management has been the priority over the quickest. So a lot of the things that I assess when it's time to manage my time and organize is what's the most important. I need to get those most important things done first, because if I don't get those most important things done first and I pick all these small tedious tasks, before you know it, the time has passed and the most important things are still not done. So the one tidbit I would leave with you when you're talking about time management is put the most important things in priority, get those things done, and then move on to your quicker task. And then also doing it in the time in which it is allotted for. If you're going to sit and you're going to put these things out on the calendar, actually follow the calendar, because that's what you use it for. You used it for the organization and time management of it all. So you need to stick to it. And the last, this is my favorite one, the last tool in the toolbox is emotional intelligence and communication skills. Effective communication and emotional intelligence is so important. And we talk about corporate America sometimes, and in corporate America, as a corporate America girly, I have experienced so many people being hired off a skill set. And when they get into an environment with other people with multiple personalities, they struggle so much because they have the skill set, but they don't have the mindset. And when we talk about mindset, that's when emotional intelligence come into play. If you're here for the first time, I call my community the regulators. I call us the regulators because a lot of what I talk about is to drive us to a space where we're more emotionally regulated. And if you are emotionally regulated or you're actively working on it all the time, then you're a regulator just like me. And a lot of that is coming out of the emotional intelligence model, where you're trying to be intentional about understanding your emotions, understanding the people around you emotions, and learning how to manage them day to day. And a lot of people don't have that skill. It's a lot of neuroscientists and a lot of psychologists that feel like emotional intelligence, or EQ, is more valuable than IQ in today's society. And I tend to agree with them based on human behavior and what I've experienced working in the self-help and personal development space for so long. And then we talk about communication skills. Whew. Effective communication, Jesus. Effective communication has been a pivotal piece in problem solving for me. Along the years, learning how to effectively communicate has been able to help me move forward in spaces where I never thought I could move forward in. And a lot of times it's fear, self-doubt, self-limiting behaviors and thoughts that stop us from communicating properly. But please, 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 if you don't develop any of these other skills, please, emotional intelligence and effective communication is going to take you a long way, and it's going to help you with the other skills. So now we're going to talk about a few resources, books, and courses that I've experienced over the years, some that have helped me continue in this DIY project, so to speak, of us figuring out what we need to do and like moving any rock or mountain or boulder, no matter how big it is, from in front of us so that we can keep going in whatever direction that is, because we all know that it's not linear. We're going to have to go round and round. Sometimes we go in a circle and come back to the same thing and got to start over again. Sometimes we can go straight and just get it done because we're listening and we're actually doing what we're supposed to be doing. But nonetheless, we're going to give ourselves grace. I know we might not have gotten it all done in January like we said we were, but here we are. We're going to reset, refocus, reflect a little bit, figure out what we did wrong, and then we're going to keep pushing through this season. We are in more sunlight. The spring is coming back, so we're getting ready to start blooming. So we're going to prepare ourselves to do this the right way. So I want to make sure I give you some resources so that you can go ahead and dive into these before the spring comes, because in the spring, we're going to have to get to work. So one of the first resources I have for you is this book. And the book title is Personality Isn't Permanent by Benjamin Hardy. That book did so much for me. One of the biggest takeaways, well, first of all, the gist of the book is eliminating those self-limiting beliefs. We want to get rid of those self-limiting beliefs because a lot of times we tell ourselves what we can't do. That doesn't mean that it's true. We got to stop believing everything that we think. We don't know everything. I said that earlier. We don't know nothing. We have to stop believing everything that we think because it's not true. A lot of times we have self-limiting beliefs that we need to focus on getting rid of so that we can move and get out of our own way. That book, goal. Another thing that came out of that book for me is finding those little pockets of joy. I think after I read that book, I chased peak experiences. That has been the biggest thing that I could say I got out of that book. After that book, fulfillment was so much more important to me because I realized how much chasing peak experiences and having those peak experiences or those moments that create aha moments was so pivotal to my journey. So that book right there definitely put me in a space where I started to chase peak experiences, because when I experienced it, it did. It definitely changed my trajectory. It gave me a different perspective and a different mindset. So I wanted to give you that resource first. The second resource I want to give you is Audible. I know most people listen to ebooks and audio versions of books. I couldn't get that out. Audio versions of books. But I don't know if a lot of people take advantage of the courses that are available on Audible. One of the course series that I've indulged in quite a bit is the Great Courses, and that's the name of the series. And the series is definitely ran by professionals, professors, PhD level doctors, and most of them are coming out of high level Ivy League colleges. So it's a great resource for us who don't feel like we should go to college for everything, self-learners and people who want to learn different skill sets but don't want to pay for a class or be enrolled in a class. And this particular one, since we're talking about critical thinking today, and I feel like it's very important, is a 12-hour course, and it's called the Creative Thinkers Toolkit. And it is taught by Dr. Gerard Puccio. It's 12 hours long. Did I say that? It's 12 hours long, but it's worth the listen. You're going to go through the 4 major stages of critical thinking. And by the end of it, you're going to learn how to assess your issue, brainstorm on solutions. Once you brainstorm on those solutions, you're going to reassess them and figure out which ones are the more realistic ones, which ones can actually be done. And then you're going to move on to actually executing it in real life. And that course is going to take you through all of those steps. It's the best course. And if that one isn't the one you need because you feel like you're a great critical thinker, check out the other options that the great courses have, because I've taken multiple courses through Audible, through that series that is perfection. And of course, if you want to learn, or if you're a learner like me, you want to learn from someone who knows more than you, someone who's considered to be an expert in that field, and they have a plethora of professionals, a plethora of professors who teach at colleges and teach kids this stuff all the time. So you know, you don't have to go, but I think it's a great resource. All right. So the book Self-Discipline in Neuroscience by Ray Clear, it is written to help you understand and clarify how self-discipline is the key to achieving all your goals and life's fulfillment. A lot of people think that skill set matters more than mindset. And I said that again. I said it before when I was talking about emotional intelligence, and I'm going to repeat that again. When they say you going to the gym and it's mental more than it is physical, when you have to get through something and they tell you, hey, you got to trust the process. I know that it doesn't seem like it's going to work out, but you got to have faith. All of those things come with a certain level of self-discipline. And this book hones in on how self-discipline is really the key to getting you to complete these DIY projects. So I want y'all to definitely take a little gander at that, because that one is definitely a reread for me this year, and I'm going to be revisiting that. If you're a book reader, you know if you read a book more than once, it's really that girl. It's really that girl. I'm just saying. Read the book. It's tea. All right. In this last section, I want to kind of talk about a little bit more about my own experience with the DIY project. And it's funny to me because I can directly see how life being a DIY project and how I actually handled DIY projects and how they correlate with each other. So let me say this. I have not taken on a DIY project in about 2 or 3 years, and I'm going to tell you why. Like I mentioned earlier in the episode, I am a learner. I love to learn. I love to research. I will watch 30 plus videos and TikToks and read all of the things to try to learn how to do this DIY project that I'm getting ready to do. And one thing that I always say is when you look at them on that video, it looks so easy and you're so convinced that you're going to be able to do this DIY project that you invest. And when I say invest, you have to go buy the tools. You have to invest your time in learning these little small skills because you don't have a skill set. That's what makes it a DIY project. You don't have the skill set, so you're learning these skills while you're watching these videos, and then you're going to invest your money and go buy those tools, and then you're going to sit down and you're going to start this project. In my own personal experience, I've started these projects, and I'm doing good. I'm all excited. I'm telling everybody, oh, I'm getting ready to make this. I'm getting ready to do that. Then I go to the store and I happily spend my money and I buy all the tools that I have to buy in order to get this DIY project done, because I've watched 30 videos. Again, remember now, I done watched 30 videos. I done took a piece from her video, his video, their video. I done made it all together, and then I done added my special twist in the planning process because I want it to be uniquely mine, right? I get home, I do all of these things, I get it all laid out, and then I start the DIY project. Do you know how many times I have gotten to that point in DIY projects so excited, and by the next step, I'm done? I'm literally doing the DIY project and I'm like, this don't look like this. I don't understand why I'm doing just exactly what they said do. I'm following every step that they said follow, and it don't look like theirs, or mine isn't coming out just like theirs. And when I stopped there in my thought process, I said, that's exactly how most people approach life. And I'm saying most people because they used to be me too. We look at other people, we get inspired, we look at the experts, we hear what they say, and then we start doing what they say do, step by step. For some of us, just like the study says, 22% of us are going to do exactly what we said we're going to do. We're going to stick to the plan and we're going to actually execute. But for the other 54% of us, we going to kind of get it done. And that's what happens to me in DIY projects. I kind of get it done. I almost got it finished, but I had to stop because the challenges arose. And that's a big part of why these DIY projects don't work out for me, is that once I'm challenged, I give up. I have a bin the size of this table full of resources, tools, items that I've purchased to do DIY projects that I never finish because I'm so excited until I'm challenged. And when you think about that, when we make that analogy that life is a DIY project, a lot of us stay stuck in the space that we're in because once we are challenged, we don't want to fight. We don't want to keep going. We don't want to go back to the drawing board and rewatch a video or two. We don't want to be innovative and be creative and create a different way of doing it and be free and have courage to move forward in order to get past that stumbling block, because just because they didn't show you don't mean that you can't figure out a way to get through it. And that's how those DIY projects that we do and don't finish correlate to life, and how we get into a space and we get stuck and we don't move forward. And a lot of it like resonated with me, and I'm like, oh my God. So when I say I haven't did a DIY project in the last 3 years, it's because I realized that I give up when I start to get challenged, and I keep investing my time and my money into these projects, but then I don't finish them. So I had to stop and put a hard stop on it and say, okay, until you want to like stand in the paint and really get through these processes, don't buy no more stuff. Don't waste your time. That's what I told myself. I told myself, don't waste my time. But when you start looking at life as a DIY project, unless you're ready to give up, you can't stop. You can get knocked down, but you got to get back up again. You can bend and fold, but you cannot break. And that, the last 3 years, I think I've put more intention into life as my DIY project, and me learning in those challenging times that I can fold and bend, but I can't break, or I could fall down, but I got to get back up. Now I feel like I might go revisit a DIY project or two. But in real life, we really got to start thinking about that. We got to stop allowing challenges and our self-limiting beliefs stop us from finishing what we started. It's going to keep on stopping us from feeling accomplished and getting to those fulfilling moments if we allow every little challenge and every little obstacle stop us from doing what we got to do. And that's going to segue us into the last part of this episode, when we're talking about what those challenges look like and how we're going to get through those challenges. So when we talk about challenges, some of the common obstacles that I see that came up for me and that come up for others is that fear of failure and that self-doubt. And if you've accomplished anything, even if it's just being a great parent or being a great employee or a great entrepreneur, you know that that fear of failure and self-doubt, if you held on to it, you would never be in the space that you're in right now. If we allow fear to stop us from doing what we need to do, we'll always be stuck. Always. And when we talk about self-doubt, we circle back around to that trust in yourself, that putting intent into developing what skill sets you have and making them better so that you can actually accomplish. There are ways to overcome these obstacles. You just have to be interested in putting in the work. The next obstacle that I see a lot of, and I spoke about for myself in episode 1, part 2, is procrastination and lack of motivation. We briefly spoke about it then, and I'll revisit this now. Lack of motivation is going to happen. Motivation is fleeting. You are not always going to be at your best. You are not always going to feel motivated. And what is going to help you overcome that is self-discipline. Read that book that I mentioned before. Self-discipline is what is the tool that is going to help you get out of lack of motivation and procrastination. When you have self-discipline, it's a habitual thing. You get up every day and you do what you're supposed to do over and over again until it becomes a habit. Because once it's a habit, procrastination is less and less. Lack of motivation is less and less, because now you're habitually doing the things that your body and your mind is telling you need to do. So getting some self-discipline, establishing some habits is going to help you overcome that obstacle of procrastination and lack of motivation. Some additional strategies that I want to include that'll help us with overcoming challenges would be, 1, setting realistic goals and milestones. So I don't know how many of you guys actually sat out with New Year's resolution, came January 1st, and you wrote some goals out. The one thing that I do with every client that I have is we do a SMART goals model. SMART goals ensures that your goals are very specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and have a time. So when you looking at your goals, you want to make sure they're realistic, something that you can actually obtain. You want to make sure they're very specific and clear. You want to make sure that they're measurable and they actually have a quantity attached to them. You want to also make sure that you have a time frame. So let's say in January, which is one of the highest goals, to get fit or to increase your wellness. You say in January, I'm going to work out more. That's a cute goal, but that doesn't have any measurables. It doesn't have any time frames. It's very realistic, But where do you go from here? You just want to do more? Okay. Something more specific and realistic would be I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week for the next 3 months in order to be more self-disciplined with my fitness journey. That sounds like a more realistic goal. Now, what I would like to add to that, what I also do with my clients in my large groups, is that I would like for us to have some kind of emotional attachment to those goals. So when you set those goals, I want you to tell yourself why that goal is so important. So when I say I want to work out 3 times a week for the next 3 months in order to, create a habit for my fitness journey, I want to do that because I want to look better in my clothes. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to lower my blood pressure. There needs to be some type of emotional attachment. I want to run around with my kids more and be more active. There needs to be some type of emotional attachment to these goals when you set these goals, because if there's no emotional attachment, you won't stick to it. And I stand by that when I say that. And if you do stick to it, is there any fulfillment or sense of accomplishment attached to it if there is no emotional connection to these goals? Are they really your goals, or are they the standard of society or the standard of the employer or the standard of the family in order for you to achieve these goals? Because there needs to be some type of emotional attachment to your goals so that you have a reason to stick to them. And then also you have a reason to celebrate, which is the next thing. You want to celebrate small victories and learn from setbacks. If you don't celebrate your small victories, it's always going to be what's next. You're never going to be happy with what you're doing. All you're going to be trying to do is figure out what I'm going to do next. And that is draining. It causes burnout. And you need to stop and smell the roses. You stopping to smell the roses could be a dinner. It could be 2 hours out of your day. It doesn't have to be a full trip to Hawaii, okay? So let's not pretend like celebrating your small victories is going to take so much out of you. Your small victory could be, I made it to the gym 3 times this week. I'm going to have a good cheat meal on Saturday. Not a cheat day, but a cheat meal. Let's celebrate when we've done things right so that we give ourselves something to look forward to. When we talk about learning from setbacks, oh my, we're going through this self-reflection process on the off season in this series for these reasons, because it has been so many setbacks. So many setbacks. But in every setback, there is something for me to take out of it. There has been a lesson that I have learned, if not multiple lessons that I've learned in order to get me to the next level. So those setbacks, as much as they may hurt, it's temporary. As much as they may not feel amazing at the time, it's temporary. And if you have shifted your mindset to know and understand that I am going to have challenges, I'm going to have obstacles, and throughout those obstacles and challenges, I know it's a reason. I know it's something for me to learn. If you can look at it as a lesson instead of a loss, it is going to always help you push forward in that DIY project and get you to the point to where you can keep your creativity, your freedom to choose, your courage to move forward. It'll continuously feed you if you continuously learn from those setbacks. So in today's episode, we talked about how life is the ultimate DIY project. We talked about what a DIY project is, what the mindset of a DIY project would look like, the characteristics of us looking at life like a DIY project, the challenges, and even how to overcome some of those challenges. I hope that I have encouraged you to look at your life as a DIY project. Kind of look at your life right now and see what you can improve in your DIY projects. See what inspiration you require, what skill set and mindset development needs to happen. And then if you're in the midst of challenges, just understanding that it's temporary, and that if you apply what you learn, or if you put intent into learning, especially while you're down, those lessons are going to mean so much more when you're up. So I hope that this episode today has encouraged you to look at your own life as a DIY project and figured out what parts of your DIY project are you missing, what resources are missing, and things that you need to do to make you feel comfortable with completing this DIY project we call life. Always, as always, I appreciate you guys for coming and okay. As always, regulators, I appreciate you for coming week after week, come listening and giving me your feedback. Don't forget to go to your preferred platform, follow the podcast, subscribe on YouTube, leave a comment, turn on your notification bell so that you know when an episode is coming. Follow me on Instagram so that you can see the in-between content of the podcast. You can kind of figure out what's going on with me, my challenges, because I share them quite a bit, my accomplishments. I'm trying to be more open and more free, so I hope you accept me for who I am and how I am, because I'm not going to change. And I can't wait to see you on next week's episode. On part 2, we're going to talk about transformative coaching questions that can help you in your DIY project. Can't wait to see you on part 2. Bye. Hey, regulators, I know you're listening and you're like, why did it stop right there? That is part 1 of this episode. Please make sure that you are following me on all platforms so you know when the next episode is going to be released. And also make sure you comment, like, subscribe. I want to hear from you. I want to know what you're thinking when you're listening to these episodes, and I want to know what you want from me in the future. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so that you know when part 2 is dropping.